Hello and welcome. I'm the Rambling Director. Sorry it's a little bit echoey in here due to some technical difficulties. I have to film this on my iPad. So I'll explain that more in another video. But for now, we got to get right to it because today is a very special day. As you might know if you keep up with cartoons and toys, as I do, I love cartoons. If you keep up with that sort of thing, you may know that Hasbro has been celebrating the 40th year anniversary of My Little Pony the last little bit. They released, I think last year it was, they released their 40th anniversary line, which re-released all of the classic 80s pony toys that a lot of us grew up with. And today in particular is a special day because today is the 13th year anniversary of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, which just so happens to be my favorite animated show. Now, don't worry if you've been watching my Molly McGee videos. I have several of those backlogged and recorded and they're ready to be posted. I'm still going to be posting those and talking about Molly McGee, but I also wanted to talk about this because it is my favorite animated show, and I thought today was the perfect day to start off talking about the series. So we're going to do this just like all of my other videos where I talk about shows that I'm watching, but in this case I have more hindsight so I can give you some more details on the specifics. Today we're going to be talking about episode 1 of Friendship is Magic. Now this was, as with any pilot, this was the handshake episode. This was the hi, nice to meet you, put your best foot forward. And I think it did that very well. I remember the first time watching this was probably back in 2012, I think was the first time I watched any of the series. And I started it in order after watching a couple episodes because I was really interested in it. I started watching it with my little siblings. Had no idea that people on the internet were, that at the time it was a big thing and that it was a weird thing for adults to be liking My Little Pony. So it was kind of a weird experience to discover that because I didn't discover it till later. I just watched it with my siblings and I love cartoons. I've talked about that a lot on this channel. I grew up with Powerpuff Girls, Ed, Edd and Eddy, Johnny Bravo, the classic cartoons. And I had Boomerang, so I grew up with the stuff my mom grew up with. And I've just always had this great respect for animation of all sorts, but particularly just TV cartoons. I loved the TV shows in the 80s. And the reruns of My Little Pony that I would watch. I loved that too. So, yeah, so watching this show, it kind of took me back because some of you might not remember this, but in 2012, 2010, we were coming off a string of like 7 to 10 years where cartoons were not that great. They really were kind of crappy. And, the one that comes to my mind immediately was Johnny Test. I had a particular loathing for the Johnny Test, which is, if like Johnny Test was like your favorite cartoon, no shame or anything like that. It did not connect with me. I did not like that show. And so, yeah, I went back and watched this show the first time, and it always struck me, in particular, one element of this show is that it sets up by having that classic, fairy tale opening, the book, reading the story. It sets up a lot of lore. It really establishes Equestria as its own world in the same way that in the first few chapters of Sorcerer's Stone, you get that sort of, setup where like it doesn't tell you everything about the world, but it gives you enough that you get a taste for it and you want to know more. I really always greatly appreciated that. I thought the way they set up this story, the magic system is a soft magic system, but they set it up very nicely by showing what magic can do. That the two princesses raise the sun and the moon, that's an interesting bit of world building. It's something I've never seen in anything else, to the best of my knowledge, where the powers of the universe and stuff are always kind of tied into these magic systems, but to have a heliocentric model where the sun and moon get raised by unicorns, that's fairly unique. And So from the first time I watched this first episode, I just remember thinking like, wow, like, man, like they really put some thought into building a world that from the word go just is immediately enthralling. And that really comes, like, later, jumping way ahead here, but later on when Hasbro introduced things like the Equestria Girls, which is a movie series where the ponies go into the human world and they become humans, there was always something missing. There was some, no pun intended, there was some magic missing from it. And there was a lot of debate among people online who were fans, about why this wasn't so good. And a YouTuber named Silverquill, who I'm a big fan of, actually is the reason I started doing analysis videos. He actually, I think, put his finger on it when he said it really comes down to the world, and the entire reason that Friendship is Magic as a series worked was because Lauren Faust, the lady who created this new generation, the Generation 4 of My Little Pony, she really is one of the finest cartoon series creators currently working. And her husband is Craig McCracken, who a lot of you will know if you keep up with cartoons. And you can just tell that the thought that went into building this world. There, you could actually buy the show Bible that she wrote. All of the art and stuff. It's incredible to see the thought that went into what really, by all accounts, should have been a cash grab cartoon. And it really is. There's a reason why it is my favorite animated series. There's lots to choose from. I love a lot of animated shows, but it really comes down to the world, one, and the characters that we get introduced to from this opening. Twilight, of course, is the star of the show. She's the princess's main pupil, and she discovers that the infamous Nightmare Moon, who is a legendary figure, that she might be returning to bring about eternal night, which is a cool concept in and of itself. I mean, and the motivation for it's very good because she's just jealous of her sister. So even that villainous character, you get some interesting motivation. She could have just been pure evil. They didn't have to give her that kind of backstory. And then by making her a good guy, become a good guy, they set up for arguably most people's favorite princess character in the show, Princess Luna. And I always really thought that the characters, you could tell the characters were very important to these folks that were making this show. Again, there was just no reason to put in this much effort, because it was just to Hasbro, it was probably just about selling toys. But by putting in the effort to make a really lovable main character in the form of Twilight, who has, on the one hand, sort of this every girl sort of vibe. You can easily understand her, but she also is obsessive compulsive. She has an incredibly fragile sense of stress, and if she gets stressed too not very far, she will have a complete mental breakdown to the point where she regularly causes mayhem. And so that's kind of an interesting little thing. Each character is associated with a certain element of friendship: laughter, generosity, honesty, loyalty, kindness. And what I like about the way the characters are designed is you would think in most kids' shows that they would take that sort of thing and they would say, oh, okay, yeah, so Rarity's just going to be generous all the time. That's just her thing. She's always generous. But no, they instead make her an incredibly selfish kind of bitch. They make Fluttershy somebody who is not just kind. She's either a doormat or she's on the verge of beating everybody up. Applejack is constantly lying to everybody, yet she is the element of honesty, because she has the conscience to realize that the lies are not making things better, and to realize that honesty really is the best policy, and come around to that. But her struggle is telling the truth. Rainbow Dash's struggle is to be loyal. She is loyal, sometimes to a fault, but then other times she's so self-ambitious that she's willing to give up all of her friends and her own well-being. So that's kind of an interesting thing to teach kids, and I always thought that was a good thing to teach kids, that, sometimes the best thing, and you can believe with all your heart this is the right thing to do, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the easy thing to do. And it might, in fact, be something you really struggle with. Maybe being honest is something you're really going to struggle with for your whole life. Most people do. It doesn't mean that that's not a worthy goal to pursue. So I've always really enjoyed that little aspect. Spike, the little dragon character who's a sidekick to Twilight, there was an old meme, sort of, that Spike was kind of useless, and he was kind of a waste of space. And in the first 2 seasons, 3 seasons, I kind of have to agree with that. He's kind of like an annoying little brother character. He never bothered me, but there can be times, especially in the episodes that are about him, where he is constantly causing his own issues. And so the episodes are always about him fixing his own issues. He does get better, to the point where by the end of the series, he's one of my favorite characters. But in that first little bit, in this first episode, it's not a very good showcasing of him. So this first episode, Twilight is trying to convince Celestia that, oh no, Nightmare Moon's going to return, we got to do something. And Celestia's like, no, why don't you just enjoy the party? Because, we're planning this big party for the 1,000th year anniversary of Celestia's reign. And in fact, you need to go to this place called Ponyville. These names. Ponyville, Canterlot. Oh gosh. Philadelphia is one later on. The names are funny. But anyway, you need to go over there and help them set up for the party and try to make some friends. And of course, she's introduced to her 5 friends and their respective archetypes. And it's very well established, very good, straightforward establishment. You get an idea of who everybody is. For the most part, it's not too ham-fisted. Once in a while, you get certain things, like Rarity saying, "Sparkle always does the trick, does it not?" It's a little bit on the nose. But then you get some things that are just... They tell you so much about the character, but they also set up so much more about the world. Like Applejack's family reunion coinciding with this. So Applejack introduces Twilight to her entire family from all across Equestria, and all of their names are Apple related, and that's a good bit of world building, but it's also funny. It's really funny because they're delivering their food, but it's also the food they're named after. That's an interesting little piece. Side note, as a Tennessean, Applejack is my favorite, I've got to say. I'm surrounded by people like the Apple family. My wife's family is a lot like the Apple family, come to think of it. I have my own Granny Smith. And so, anyway, for the most part, these characters are very well established, very nicely handled. They're not shoved down your throat, their character traits, but it gets across. Pinkie Pie's another one who's maybe a little bit over the top in this first episode. Some people are really annoyed by her. I like her, but I think there's a few times when she goes a little bit far. And this first episode is not a great showing for her either. That being said, she's better in the second half, episode 2. But for episode 1, it ends with Nightmare Moon returning. Twilight was right, and it's funny, Nightmare Moon was the one that got me hooked on the show. This was the reason that I was like, I gotta watch more of this. Because there's something almost like the little kid version of a Bond villain in Nightmare Moon. I can't explain it, and I've had several friends that I've convinced to watch the show with me who had that same thought, that Nightmare Moon is kind of awesome. And later on, when she comes back to being a good guy and becomes Princess Luna again, Princess Luna, again, most people's favorite princess character in the show, and mine too. I love Princess Luna. So, overall, that's episode 1. Episode 2 will post hopefully tomorrow if I can get past my technical difficulties. Let me know in the comments, is this a show you guys like? Is it a show you hate? Some people hate it. Some people, and I understand that, especially the internet community, the fan base for anything can make you hate something. So do let me know. I love it. I love cartoons in general, but this is one of my favorites. So let me know what you think. And follow me along on this journey that we talk about it. I've seen all of it before, but I think this is possibly a little bit better than some of the things like Molly McGee, where I'm giving my real-time thoughts, but this I have the hindsight to say. If I'm talking about a character, I can tell you, oh yeah, that character goes on to do this, and that's why this was a good choice. So I think this will be a fun little experiment. Maybe if we do this and you guys like it, maybe I'll do it with some other shows that I've already watched all of. So let me know. And keep an eye out, because in the next little bit I'll also be posting my analysis video of the 1960 George Powell production of The Time Machine. I know a lot of you guys subscribe for that analysis material, so stay tuned. There'll be plenty more of that in the future. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one.